1800s, ships from Australia to England had to pass through the formidable Great Barrier Reef and the Torres Strait. Uncharted coral reefs meant shipwrecks were frequent, and those castaways in small boats had to run a terrifying gauntlet of headhunters in the Torres Strait. Dismal tales were brought back to Sydney by survivors of these shipwrecks, of the cruel reefs, of hunger and thirst 2,000 miles from help, of death from the clubs and bamboo knives of the headhunters who prized a whitehead above their own. And so the Torres Strait became known as the Strait of Terror. Great Detached Reef has claimed 7 old sailing ships. It's a navigational hazard because it protrudes beyond the north-south line of the outer reefs. I can see some dark patches over there on the reef. That'll be a wreck. We'll need to check that one out. There's a few of them on this reef here, so we've got to find the right one. Can you get the anchor ready, please?
Yep.
I'm searching for a particular wreck that has a terrible story to tell. So typical of this early era of terror and hardships endured by the survivors when their vessels became tombs in the coral. Guy Saunders is one of my crew. Karen Brandstater another. Myself, my son Dean and Trina Fleischman make up the full crew. Oh, and of course Tuffy, my little sea dog. We all wear Polaroid sunglasses. It's the best way to spot something on the reef top.
Look guys, there's a turtle!
It's a green turtle. Yeah, it's coming up.
Oh, it's gorgeous! I think that's a shark.
Oh, tawny shark, yeah. Guy, just take the dinghy around, we'll follow him a moment. Now what we're looking for is the Charles Eaton wreck. She went down on Great Detached somewhere here in 1834. But there are 7 shipwrecks on this reef. So the only way we can identify her is by a cargo. She carried about 400 lead ingots. So we're going to look for any black lines running across the reef. Anything dark. Over here, something dark. There's the anchor chain. See it running right along? Just up here.
It's a long one.
Oh, a long one, yeah. Go almost crosses the reef here.
Yeah.
Just up a bit further. Bit further. Bit further. Just stop. Yeah. Look for lead ingots. It's the only way we're going to know if it's a Charles Eaton. The line of anchor chain runs right across the reef. The seas have long since smashed her timber hull to pieces, and only the heavy items, the chain, ballast, cannon and anchors remain. Aha! Something interesting. Oh, that's heavy.
What is it, Ben?
It's a grinding wheel, just an old-fashioned grinding wheel. Of course, to sharpen the knives on board, but had another use. They always carried quite a few of these because when someone died, they'd put this in with a body bag to send him down.
Down to Davy Jones's
locker. And so, well, I suppose the what's the guy with the trident? Neptune could sharpen his trident with it.
There you go.
Well, we've got to send it back to Neptune anyway.
Absolutely, might need it.
There's one more place to search. We swim through the surf to where the ship first hit and may have dumped her heavy cargo of lead. There's the lead ingots. It's proof the wreck is the Charles Eaton. Tuffy goes snorkeling too. The day this ship went down in the coral was the beginning of the most bloodthirsty chapter in Australia's maritime history. Not only did they have to survive the shipwreck, but they had to go north through the headhunter country. And the crew of the boat, they jumped into the only boat and took off and left all the rest to their fate. And as the ship broke up here on the reef, they quickly fashioned 2 rafts, launched them in the water, crowded on them, and drifted northwest into the headhunter country. We follow in the castaway's path.
Oh, you must be a big one. Putting up a fight.
I don't know what it is though, but it's big. He's a sharky.
I've caught a shark. Oh my god. Oh my god.
Grab that.
You're too pretty to eat for dinner.
On this pretty island, the castaways' drama continued. The 2 rafts slowly drifted in toward this beach, called Boyden Cay, and some natives paddled out in canoes and beckoned them in, and they seemed friendly. And the castaways, they reached the beach and just absolutely collapsed on the beach through exhaustion and fatigue. But then suddenly, the mood of the natives changed. A massacre seemed imminent, and the first officer read passages from the Bible and warned them to just accept their fate. The massacre was swift. The natives immediately rushed down with clubs, killed all the people, and cut off their heads with bamboo knives. But they spared 4 boys, and these 4 boys watched in horror when they saw their family and their friends decapitated, the heads lined up on the beach, and the bodies cast into the sea for the sharks. The boys and the heads were loaded into canoes and paddled north to here. Oread Island is another beautiful island in the Torres Strait, and this is where they brought those 4 surviving boys and all the trophy heads. And these heads were added to others that surrounded a turtle shell, 45 skulls, and this island became known as Skull Island. Now there was once a large village here, but in retaliation the crew of the Isabel came here and they destroyed the entire village. They smashed the canoes, the skull house, and they even cut down every coconut tree. And without this very means of survival, the natives had to leave Oread and never return. So what about the 4 surviving boys? The eldest 2, they were later killed. But the younger ones, Cabin Boy Island and the infant William Doyley, they survived, and they were treated very well and eventually sold to some Murray Islanders for a bunch of bananas. 2 years later, the ship Isabel called in at Murray Island and rescued them. And 4-year-old Doyley, he cried and screamed when they tried to take him away from his foster father, because the only life he knew was living with cannibals. Then the retribution began. Oread Island was destroyed. The 45 skulls were collected, and one of those skulls bore long tresses of hair that belonged to William Doyley's mother. Those skulls were taken back and buried in an old cemetery in Bennelong near Sydney. And this area became known as the Strait of Terror. The Torres Strait Islanders were like the wreckers of old, waiting for some ill-fated ship, their canoes appearing as if by magic, hastening to the doomed vessel like a flock of vultures. Murray Island is peaceful now. The only action is among the school of baitfish. The baitfish spook because several sharks appear. Dean entices them closer for a little fun. Dean can see they're not dangerous sharks, just harmless tawnies. And this one is so intent on swallowing the bait, it doesn't realise it's being pulled slowly to the shore.
We're almost out of bait. I think we should use this as bait. You come as bait? Can we use you as bait? I think you're too good. Use you as bait? Alright, let's go.
The Murray Islanders were perhaps the nicest of the headhunters, if you could call any headhunter nice. But they did have something that would instill absolute fear into any of these other island tribes, and that was the drum of myrrh. Now there were two drums, but only one survived, the one they called wasikor. Its beat once encouraged the headhunters into a wild frenzy before a raid. Today it's beaten for cultural dances, a revival of their past. Now there's a tradition that persists on this south side of Myrrh, just in on the beach there beyond this fish trap. There was a village called Lass, and it was people with fair skin. Presumably they'd intermarried with castaways, European castaways from a shipwreck out there. Now there's also a legend that links up with this, a very important legend, because a boat came into shore here and the natives beckoned them in, made out that they were friendly. The castaways were a little suspicious, but they had no choice, so they landed on the beach here and they unloaded 3 chests of coins, and they buried these coins on the beach. Now that night, the drum of myrrh pounded this ominous threat, and the natives, they danced themselves into a frenzy, and the attack came at dawn, and most of the castaways were beheaded. Now, what about the coins? They would have stayed there, buried on the beach. Maybe the native kids dug them up, played with them, and then just discarded them like toys. Now, legends are usually based on some fact. And an old chief named Jack, he was actually there witnessing it all when he was a boy of 15. And he was later quoted as saying about the castaways, "Them no Englishmen, Frenchmen, I think." Now, dead men tell no tales, but the bones of their ships do. And I'm going out to find that wreck. That is my clue. I remember what that chief said. Him no Englishman, Frenchman, I think.
Oh, yeah.
And to me, that's the most important clue, because where we're heading now is Ashmore Reef, and that's just east of Murray. And in 1826, the brig Sun got wrecked there, and she was carrying 30 to 40,000 Spanish dollars,
Whoa.
and they were all lost. And the other important thing is the captain was French.
Yeah.
So I've got a feeling that we're going to prove that legend is true.
Cool. Do you reckon we'll find any?
Hope so. Hey, tawny sharks beside the boat, couple of them. I think they're attracted because we did that filler thing. Hey, they look good. We'll start searching around this area first. A school of spinner dolphins ride our bow wave toward the reef. It's a joy to behold. We've got to look for something dark running in from the edge of the reef up on the top, like an anchor chain. That'll tell us where the wreck is. Just up ahead, here, there's something dark. Slow down, slow down. Looks like an anchor chain running along the reef here. Yeah, I can see the anchors. Just around here and I'll drop the anchor. Okay. Back in 1906, native divers from Murray Island stumbled over this wreck and found a small bronze cannon. It was a French Espinal cannon. Another clue for me. We have visions of masses of Spanish silver dollars spilling out of coral rocks. The first object I see is silver-coloured, but it's only lead, with a special purpose in its heavy weight. I know, let's get back to the boat.
It's a great find, Ben, but what is it?
Well, it's a lead weight for finding out how deep it is. There's a rope tied on it with knots every fathom, and they throw it over, and as it slips through the hands, they can measure the depth, how many fathoms. And see the hole there? Right, they put tallow in that. So when it hits the bottom, they can tell actually what is on the bottom.
Oh, okay.
You know, where there's mud or sand. We've seen 4 anchors and now 2 iron cannon. This one is an 18-pounder called a carronade. Here's its cannonball, all 18 pounds of it. Cannonball from the cannon.
That must have been heavy, Ben.
18 pound, I'm going to drop it. We cannot find the mother lode of 40,000 coins. I'm checking if some could be hidden in crevasses under the sand. Aha, they are. Well, that's all they found, of 40,000 coins, 4 Spanish silver dollars. So,
Is that all you've got?
yeah, but that means the legend is true, that they did load the treasure on board a boat and took it in and landed on Murray Island, and the headhunters made short work of them, and the treasure, I guess, is still buried there somewhere. I think that's a legend that's going to go on and on. Disappointed, I head back to the islands.
Ben, there's whales.
What?
It's a mother and a baby, look.
Oh, okay.
Oh, isn't it gorgeous?
Yeah, we'll cut them over.
Beautiful.
They may come in close to us.
Yeah.
He's cute, isn't he? You know, he's breaching just like an adult. He's playing adult. There are a couple of others around too. Wonder where they are. Look, look, 2 more coming up behind. Coming right up behind the boat. Under the boat. Jeez. Here they come. Wow. Legends are born from lucky finds. A Spanish galleon legend was created here, right off Stevens Island in the 1800s. A ship hit the reef right here where we are now. And because they knew the ship was doomed, the captain's wife put all her jewellery on, including 2 big rubies. But when they stepped ashore, the natives clubbed them to death, decapitated them, except for the woman. And they took these big rubies, they took all her jewellery, and they put these rubies in the eyes of their Zogo idol. They called it fire eyes. That night the woman disappeared. Perhaps she just walked into the ocean, did not want to be decapitated like her husband was. Now when the missionaries came, they asked the natives to destroy these Zogo idols. But to safeguard it, they buried it. And years later, in 1936, a Beche de Mer fisherman here accidentally uncovered the idol. He took the rubies, of course, and all the jewellery. Well, definitely not a Spanish galleon. I think it's a Batavia. She was sunk here in 1874.
Okay.
Yeah, more likely her. No way a Spanish galleon. A wreck below is great fishing above.
Hey, a red.
Dinner.
Look at that. He's pan size.
Another red.
Oh, nice one. Right, what's it? Here he comes, here he comes. Yeah! Whoompa! Look at that.
A sea snake pops up to breathe.
Oh!
Darnley Island once had a fierce tribe of headhunters. It was Captain Bligh who named this island. When he came in here trying to get some water, the natives chased him and he had to use musket fire to repel them. And one of the natives was killed, so they backed off. That was the first time the headhunters had witnessed the power of musket fire. After a successful headhunting raid, the Darnley Islanders, they would bring the heads back here on a sling. And on this flat rock, which they called kerimpo, which means skin of the head, they would take all the flesh off the skulls, off the trophy heads. Magic and sorcery dominated their lives. They believed they could enter existing animals and possess them without losing their human form. A native could simply become a turtle. Or a dugong. Old fish traps circle Darnley Island. When the tide drops, there's enough trapped fish here to feed the traditional owners. Barry Power and friend Yoko are spearing their dinner. The catch is mostly alligator garfish and golden trevally. Harry Gee and wife Alina are on a turtle hunt. His hunting skill is amazing. The turtle has its revenge, and it bites Harry on the leg. It succeeds in making Harry let it go. Not to worry, there are plenty more on this reef. A scar to remember this hunt. Dean is kite surfing past the most notorious headhunter stronghold in the Torres Strait. Uninhabited now, we're going to check it out. Warrior Island had the fiercest of all the headhunters. There was a permanent village here, quite a large village, ruled by Chief Kibitsu, and he was a crafty old guy. Now, Captain Bligh, he was the one who discovered Warrior Island back in 1792. When he passed by in his ship Providence on that second run for the breadfruit, several big canoes came out, about 100 warriors, and they chased Captain Bligh. And he had to use cannon and musket to ward them off. And his quartermaster was killed by an arrow.
Oh wow, there's a king trumpet.
It's a king trumpet.
Wow. Oh my God. What's that?
Oh, I know what it is. It's a skull. The headhunters, when the missionaries came, they buried them under clamshells, king trumpets, anything like that. We'll have to cover it up again. Don't want to touch it. Now, Warrior Island and the other islands in the central Torres Strait are very low sand cays. You've only got coconut trees and small bushes, and very difficult, impossible to make canoes. So they traded with the Papua New Guineans to the north for their canoes. And guess what they used for trade goods? Heads. And a white head was worth more. So when the Beach de Mer fishermen came in with their luggers, the headhunters were jubilant because they had something else very special, more precious than gold, and it was iron. So here was a ship full of heads, full of iron. They couldn't have it better. And another thing that they treasured were glass bottles. I mean, a young warrior, if he wanted to woo a maiden, he would take this glass bottle to her. and she would see her image and giggle and laugh back at her, and she was hooked. Some modern rubbish that's been eroded. Ah, this is what I was looking for. Yeah, a stone axe. Now, when the missionaries came, they probably hid these, buried them, because it was sort of taboo to have their old headhunting relics around. In their thirst for iron, more valuable to them than gold, the headhunters would often mutiny on board the vessels that employed them to dive for bêche de mer. Also, there were plenty of Papuan heads to be won on the mainland close by, and raids were frequent. After a successful headhunting raid, the natives would engage in the serious task of cleaning the heads. Eyes and tongues were cut out to eat. Sometimes they ate more than that. In this archival footage, they are celebrating a raid and actually cooking a human body. Now, Chief Kabisu of Warrior Island controlled all the islands around here. And this was because he had hundreds of warriors, 18-metre canoes, and these people were absolutely terrified of him. Even the bêche de mer fishermen, no way would they come near Warrior Island. But there was one man, Captain William Banner, who actually became a friend of Kabisu. In a cautious sort of way. I mean, who really wants to be friendly with a cannibal? But Kabisu one day invited him in for dinner. And Banner, of course, asked what's on the menu. And it turned out to be pearl shell meat. Now, Banner had never seen pearl shell before. And the women were cooking it in an open fire on the coals. And as the pearl shell opened up, they would put their fist in and grab the meat and shove it down in their mouth. And the little kid was doing that. And you could hear the clunk as his teeth hit something. And he spat this thing out on the ground, and Banner couldn't believe what he saw. A great big pearl sitting on the sand. Cooked and useless, could have been extremely valuable. And the boy rushed off to the hut and brought some back, a whole handful. He'd been using them, playing with them like marbles, and then basically discarding them. So Banner asked Kabisu, you know, where did you find these pearl shells? And Kabisu said, over here, on Warrior Reef, very close, lots and lots of them up in the shallows. Well, Banner took his boat there, the Julia Percy. He took 5 ton of pearl shell and lots of pearls, and went back to Sydney town. People there were just amazed. I mean, the reaction was incredible because here was a new industry, a fortune to be made up in the Torres Strait. And when he returned here, there was a lot of boats following him. Now, to thank Kabisu, he brought something special, a gift, and it was just like this. It was a tin shed, and it was probably the first prefabricated house in Australia. Now, Kabisu absolutely loved it. He sat there in his tin shed, his tin throne, and the warriors were lining up to look in there. It was the best present he could ever have given a cannibal. A rapid change was now on its way for the headhunters, as pearl shelling boomed and became the main industry of the Torres Strait for the next 100 years. By 1897, there were 260 luggers working the reef. As the shallow beds were worked out, helmeted divers went deeper, down into the Darling Deeps, where so many divers died of the bends. They called it the Divers' Graveyard. Every now and again, they would find a valuable pearl, but they paid a terrible price. More than 100 divers were taken by sharks, and the dreaded bands claimed 600 more. The Torres Strait coral reefs are a graveyard of old sailing ships. This is the Fatima wreck. She went down in 1854 and she went down with 18,000 ounces of gold. Now I've looked everywhere here, expecting gold ingots, can't find anything. So this time I brought a metal detector, and that's what I'm hoping. Maybe it's all gold dust. In the Torres Strait, 188 ships were wrecked in the 1800s, and 536 sailors died, many of them by the hands of the headhunters. Few stretches of navigable water in the world are so confined, so hemmed in by hidden reefs and shoals. This is a trigger guard from a musket. Ships were afraid to anchor till after dark, and then carefully put out all lights and kept a continuous watch for headhunters. My search for gold is not going too well. Oh, nothing. Absolutely. Lots of copper and brass, no gold. We explore the inner lagoon in the hope of finding some wreckage that has washed across the reef. We do find a luxuriant coral garden.
There's a leopard shark just out here.
The leopard shark is harmless, but not so this one, a dangerous grey whaler. A giant groper hides under a ledge. Part of the ship has washed over to here.
Hey Dad, there's a tawny shark down here under the coral. I'll grab him.
We live mainly off the sea, so when we find lots of fish congregating, we use spear guns to catch a meal. The local reef sharks want their share of our catch. The meal is too big to swallow whole, so the reef shark rests in a crevasse to slowly work it down. With its jaws stuffed full, Dean is now able to pull the shark out because it cannot bite him. I take my vessel Freedom to a real castaway island. You know, there was over 20 shipwrecks out here, just east of here. So hundreds of survivors came in to these islands, the Sir Charles Hardy Islands. So they were very important. They were marked on the map, and they also showed that there was water here. And something else very important, no headhunters. Well, this is the all-important water hole that the castaways came for. Doesn't look very inviting, does it?
No.
I guess if you're a thirsty castaway, doesn't look that good. Let's try it. Yeah, tastes all right. Got a lot of wogs in it.
Floaties, yeah.
A lot of rubbish. Look at this.
Ah, now that's not trash.
That's treasure. Yeah. There's a really fascinating story that happened here. The ship Mariner, she was wrecked on Great Detached Reef out there. Look, there's another one. I should be looking and not talking. Anyway, they came in here in a boat, presumably to get water, and they saw two wrecks, one recent and one very old. And from this old wreck, from this old wreck, they recovered a great big bronze cannon. And on it was inscribed Santa Barbara 1596. They took the cannon with them in the boat because their little boat was a bit cranky in heavy seas. They used it as ballast. And when they got down to Port Curtis, they dumped it on the beach, and years later it was refound and created the Spanish galleon legend. Of course, we know it's not true, but they were saying that the Spaniard Quiros had landed at Port Curtis nearly 170 years before Captain Cook.
Wow.
Now, I've debunked all these supposed Spanish galleon legends, except this one, and that's 1596. Now, it just could mean there is a Spanish ship out there.
Treasure.
A lot more treasure than what you found.
Oregon's good enough.
I travelled to an island in the Torres Strait where a young white woman spent 5 terrible years among the headhunters. Barbara Thompson came ashore on this beach on Prince of Wales Island when she was only 16. She was the sole survivor of a shipwreck, the America, just wrecked out here. And she lived here for 5 years, basically as a native. The Chief Baroto took her in as a wife. Now, up here, north of here, is an island called Bardu. And the chief there was called Winnie the wild man of Bardu. But he wasn't native at all. He was a Frenchman, a crazed Frenchman. He decided he wanted Barbara Thompson. He wanted to create a dynasty with the pair of them controlling the Torres Strait Islands. So he came down here with 16 canoes, 200 warriors, intending to intimidate the Chief Baroto to hand Barbara over. But he didn't count on Barbara's Scottish stubbornness. And she just said no, absolutely no. I'm sure in her mind she was thinking, I'm not going to go off with this crazy Frenchman, no way. So she remained here for that 5 years until a boat came in, the Rattlesnake. And a landing party came ashore, and they were so surprised when they got to this beach, they saw this naked woman running up to them shouting, I'm a Christian, I feel so ashamed. And it took quite a lot of convincing when she told her story that they finally accepted she was indeed the Barbara Thompson. Winnie didn't have it so good. A landing party came ashore, tried to catch him. They had muskets, and when he confronted them, he ranted and raved and then rushed at them all with his axe, and they shot him dead. The headhunters were employed to dive for the pearl shell, but mutiny was common. The boat crew killed. So a police station was set up here on the mainland to protect the pearlers. Frank Jardine and his wife were buried here. Nice little grave. This is Somerset, Frank Jardine's kingdom. It was the first government outpost to guard the Torres Strait, long, long before Thursday Island. And the cannon here, of course, they guarded the entrance. And this became a rollicking base for the pearlers. The Jardine family ruled here as chief magistrates from 1864. And young Frank, he was a handsome adventurer. It was he who sent the party up to chase down and kill Winnie the wild man of Bardu. Somerset also became a haven for shipwrecked castaways. And so Chief Kabisu, he had to really just accept what was going on. No longer could he look at these people as, future heads more for the pot. Booby Island is up ahead. It's a rocky island in the northern crossroads of two seas. Both Cook and Bligh called in, and they gave it the same name because of the nesting gannets. Booby Island became the most important stopover in Australia because of one thing. It had a unique post office set up in one of its caves. That's where the post office cave is. It's hidden behind those trees. This is the entrance here. It's well covered up with all the trees. It's a big cave. Yeah, back in 1814, that's when this first became a refuge for castaways, and there was water and provisions and that left here. And that went on for many, many years, saved a lot of castaways. And then after the Charles Eaton massacre, that's when they decided to make it a post office cave in 1837. And it became an official post office cave, only the second in Australia, Sydney being the other one. So this island and this cave became the most important island and cave in Australia. And it went on for a long, long while until they built that lighthouse up there. When there was a post office, they had a big box here with post office written on it, and inside was pens and paper, and people could leave letters here. Now, an outgoing ship, if let's say it's going to England, if someone wanted to send a letter to China, they'd put it in here, and a passing ship, which happened to be going to China, took the letter onto China. So it became a very, very important post office. There's the end of the cave. Only a few bats live up there. But not only was it very important as a post office, it was still vital for castaways. And at one time there was 2 ships wrecked out there, and there were 70 people lived here. Wow. Yeah, and they had to use all the provisions and water while they waited for a passing ship. And down there you'll see some signs, some ship signs on the wall. In fact, every castaway that got wrecked out on the Outer Barrier Reef came here. They always stopped here first, collected water and provisions. There were people who actually came in and vandalised, and even the captain got 7 years jail for stealing the provisions here. There's a lot of the names of the ships that called here, but most of them have faded. This one we can still read, HMS Salamander, 1865. Now, she was a naval gunboat, a sloop, and she actually was responsible for a lot of the charting of the inner route. Yeah, pity about all this graffiti in the cave here. I mean, it's actually covering up old ships' names.
I just wonder where they get the stamps from.
The nesting boobies that gave the island its name, they're all gone, but there's quite a lot of migratory birds come here, and they use this place as a resting place, just like the castaways did long ago. There's a legend here that a Japanese pirate, Yamada Nagamasa, had a fleet of junks here to do his raids, and supposedly he buried his treasure in one of these caves.
So is that what the metal detector's for?
Not really. I don't really believe that story. But they have found some coins in these caves, and that's what I'm going to. Yeah, this is called the Puri Puri Cave, and it's called that because some, apparently a licentious woman from the Torres Strait Islands was banished here, and she was apparently like an evil doggy woman, and the natives are just too frightened to come here because they reckon her spirit lives in this cave. And that's great for the castaways, because the castaways can come here and not worry about the headhunters. Well, here goes. Just get this on. A guy called Les Nash, when he was here, he was only a kid, and he found 7 muskets in here, 7 old-fashioned muskets, and someone else found some Spanish coins. So that's why I want to work here. Let's get this going. Oh, something here. Okay, right there. There.
No, just a bit of rubbish.
Oh, bottle top. Oh. I hope it's not all bottle tops or tabs. That's the trouble.
We want real treasure.
Oh, another one here. Right there. All right, there it is. Looks like a shilling, but no, Spanish, I think. Has it got a date?
1776.
That would be a Spanish 2 real, but that's equal to a shilling or 10 cents. But see that hole there? Now, that meant that this guy wore it around his neck, around here, on a thong, just for emergency. And this is probably his life savings. And he's dropped his life savings down here. Poor guy. I might start working back toward the entrance. So hot in here. If I was a castaway, I'd sit out the front of the cave, get some breeze. Booby Island here and Somerset were the only real safe havens for the castaways. And Chief Kabishu of Warrior Island and Winnie the Wild Man of Bardu, they subjugated their people. They literally turned them into headhunters, made them go out and hunt and decapitate. And the drums of myrrh, I mean, they brought terror and decapitation to the unfortunate castaways. And the lure of the pearl and the Darnley Deeps, they were other terrors. There were shark attacks, the bends. There's still romance in the Torres Strait. The Strait of Terror is no more. It's a place of adventure. I come here often, I love it. And I won't lose my head coming here.